fabled heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The sea is a cruel mistress, and I have learned to read her moods with my hands. I was born without hearing, so the world speaks to me through vibration, pressure, the way wood creaks under a sudden gust, the way the hull sings when the tide presses against it. My fingertips are my ears, translating a world that shouts in waves. Every morning I walk the deck of the ebon tide as if it were a living beast, feeling its pulse through the railings, the subtle shiver of the mast when a storm gathers on the horizon. The deckboards thrum beneath my soles, a low, steady rhythm that tells me whether the wind is merely passing or gathering intent. Captain Lysandra trusts my sense of the ship's heartbeat more than any chart, calling me his ghost navigator. His icy fingers often brush my wrist when he gives orders, a cold reminder of the danger that surrounds us, and a promise that he will not let me drift alone. "Steady, Mara," he says, his voice a low rumble that I feel more than hear, the vibration traveling up his forearm into my skin. "The tide is turning. Keep your eyes on the wood, feel the swell." Beside him stands Kale, the ship's fire mason, his eyes alight with a restless flame. When the wind whistles through the rigging, I feel it as a low hum in my bones. When the water grows restless, the timbers vibrate with a warning that I cannot ignore. Kale's fire-kissed lips have hovered over mine on many nights, promising heat that could melt the cold steel of the world. He leans close, his breath warm against my cheek, and I can taste the faint scent of smoked amber on his skin. "You feel it too?" he asks, his voice a soft crackle like a hearth fire. "The sea is angry tonight. I can hear it in the way the rigging sings." I nod, my hand resting on the rail, feeling the subtle tremor that runs through the wood. It's a low growl, like a beast that's been wounded. We must be ready. Then there is Verk, the quartermaster, a mountain of a man whose massive hand rests on my waist as we climb the rigging. His pulse is a steady drum against my heart, grounding me when the sea threatens to swallow us whole. He whispers promises of safety, his breath warm against my cheek, and I feel a longing that aches deeper than any tide. "Mara," Verk says, his voice a deep rumble that vibrates through his chest and into my ribs. "The crew trusts you. Trust yourself. The trench is a graveyard, but we will not become its offering." We are heading toward Leviathan's trench, a scar in the ocean floor spoken of only in hushed tones. The trench is a graveyard of wrecks, ancient ships swallowed whole by the abyss, their broken hulls now homes for creatures no sailor has ever seen. The crew mutters superstitions as we approach, but I can feel the tension in their muscles, the way their hands tighten around the railings, the quickening of their breath even though they cannot see the danger ahead. The sky is a bruised violet, the sun a thin sliver of blood on the horizon. An unnatural stillness presses against my skin like a hand. It is not the calm before a storm, it is a silence that seems to swallow sound itself, a vacuum that makes the world feel heavier. I press my palm against the wooden rail and feel the faint tremor of the ship's heartbeat slow, as if the vessel itself were holding its breath. Then the vibration begins. It is not a sound, but a deep, resonant pulse that settles in my bones. The hull shudders beneath my fingertips and the sea roars like a wounded beast. Lysandra's icy fingers brush my wrist, his breath a cold whisper against my skin. Kale's fire-kissed lips hover, promising heat. Verk's massive hand grips my waist, his pulse a steady drum against my heart. The siren's song surges, pulling us toward the abyss. "Hold fast," Lysandra commands, his voice a tremor that I feel through the deck. "The trench will try to swallow us whole." Kale steps closer, his hand finding mine, the heat of his palm a stark contrast to Lysandra's chill. "We will not let it," he says, his tone fierce. "Together." Verk leans in, his breath hot against my ear, and I can feel the words vibrating in the space between us. "Trust the wood, trust the tide, trust each other." My pulse races. I am torn between surrendering to the fierce desire that thrums between us and fighting the tide that threatens to drown us all. The choice will decide not only our survival, but the fate of the love that has blossomed in the darkness of the deep. The ship lurches forward, the hull groaning as if it were a living creature inhaling a great breath. I close my eyes for a moment, letting the vibrations paint a picture in my mind. The water below is a black maw, swirling with shadows that pulse like veins. I can feel the pressure of the trench's edge, a cold finger pressing against the hull, urging us to turn back. "Mara," Lysandra says, his voice a low vibration that seems to come from the very wood beneath us. "The trench is a living thing. It feeds on fear. Do not let it hear yours." I open my eyes and meet his gaze. His eyes are the color of storm clouds, sharp and unyielding. I can feel the chill of his stare, a reminder that he has survived countless tempests. I press my palm harder against the rail, feeling the ship's heartbeat sync with my own. I feel it, I reply, my voice a whisper that I know will not travel far, but the vibration of my words travels through the wood and into Lysander's hand. The trench is breathing, it wants us to drown. Kale steps forward, his fire-kissed lips now inches from mine. The heat of his breath brushes my cheek, and for a heartbeat I forget the danger. Let the fire guide us, he murmurs, his words a soft crackle that I can sense in the air. The flame will not let the darkness win. Verk's hand tightens on my waist, his pulse a steady drum that steadies my own. We are a crew, he says, his voice a deep rumble that reverberates through the deck, and a crew does not abandon its own. The ship crests a wave that feels like a giant hand slapping the hull. The vibration spikes, and the wood sings a mournful note that reverberates through my bones. I feel the sea's anger rise, a pressure that threatens to crush the deck. I grip the rail tighter, feeling the grain of the wood, the knots that have weathered countless storms. In that moment a memory surfaces, my mother's hands, calloused and warm, guiding my own tiny fingers over the same deckboards when I was a child. She taught me to listen to the ship, to feel its moods, to trust the language of wood and wind. I remember her whisper, a breath against my ear, "The sea will test you, child, let your heart be your compass." I let that memory anchor me. I close my eyes again, feeling the ship's pulse as a steady drum, a rhythm that matches my own heartbeat. I reach out, my hand finding Lysander's icy wrist, his skin cold as the night air, yet his grip firm. "We will not be swallowed," I say, my voice a low hum that travels through the wood, through the water, through the very air around us. We will ride the tide, not be dragged by it. Lysander nods, his eyes never leaving the horizon where the trench yawns like a dark mouth. "Steer us toward the light," he commands, his tone a command and a promise. Kale lifts his hand, a small ember of fire flickering at his fingertips. He presses it to the rail, and the heat spreads through the wood, a comforting warmth that counters the cold bite of the sea. "Feel the fire," he says, his voice a gentle blaze. "Let it remind you that even in darkness there is heat." Verk steps to the helm, his massive frame a solid anchor against the rolling deck. He places his hand on the wheel, his fingers wrapping around it like a grip on a lifeline. "Hold fast," he growls, his breath a steady rhythm. "The storm will pass, and we will emerge stronger." The ship begins to sway, the hull groaning as if it were a great beast inhaling and exhaling. The vibration intensifies, a deep thrumming that feels like the heartbeat of the ocean itself. I can sense the trench's pull, a magnetic force that tries to draw us down into its abyss. I focus on the sensations, the cold bite of the wind on my skin, the warm ember of Kale's fire, the steady drum of Verk's pulse, the icy clarity of Lysander's resolve. Each sensation is a thread, weaving a tapestry of strength around me. "Mara," Lysander says, his voice a low vibration that seems to echo in the wood, "the trench is a test of will. Let your heart guide us, not fear." I take a breath that I cannot hear, but I feel the air moving through my lungs, the rise and fall of my chest. I let my mind drift to the faces of the crew, their hands gripping the railings, their eyes closed, trusting me to hear what they cannot. I feel their hope, their fear, their unspoken prayers. "We are not alone," I whisper, the words of vibration that travels through the deck, through the hull, into the sea. "We are bound by more than duty. We are bound by love, by fire, by the promise of sunrise." Kale's lips brush my ear, a soft kiss of heat that sends a shiver through my spine. "Then let us love fiercely," he says, his voice a gentle flame, "for the sea will never extinguish what burns within us." Verk's hand squeezes my waist, his pulse a steady drum that steadies my own. "Together," he murmurs, "we will weather any storm." The ship lurches again, the hull shuddering as if the sea itself were trying to tear it apart. I feel the trench's pull grow stronger, a deep, resonant hum that vibrates through the wood and into my bones. I close my eyes, letting the sensations guide me. In the darkness below I can sense shapes, ghostly silhouettes of wrecked ships, their timbers broken, their souls lost to the abyss. I feel the weight of their stories, the sorrow of sailors who never returned. I promise them silently that I will not let their fate be ours. "Hold the line," I command, my voice a firm vibration that travels through the deck, through the hull, into the water. "Lysander, steer us away from the trench's maw. Kale, keep the fire alive. Verk, steady the helm." Lysander turns the wheel with a practiced hand, the wood creaking under his grip. The ship begins to veer, the hull groaning as it changes course. The trench's pull lessens, the deep hum fading like a dying beast. Cale fans a small flame, the fire dancing on the rail, casting flickering shadows that chase away the darkness. The heat spreads, a comforting presence that seeps into the wood, into my skin. Verk's massive arms hold the wheel steady, his muscles flexing with each surge of the sea. He mutters a low chant, a rhythm that matches the ship's heartbeat, a grounding force that steadies us. The storm begins to break, the sky lightening as the violet bruises fade into a pale gold. The sea's anger recedes, the waves calming into a gentle roll. I feel the ship's pulse return to its steady rhythm, a lullaby of wood and water. When the sun finally rises, its light spilling across the deck like molten gold, I stand at the rail, my fingertips pressed to the wood, feeling the warmth of the day seep into the grain. The trench lies behind us, a scar on the horizon, but we have passed it. Lysander stands beside me, his icy fingers no longer cold but steady, his eyes reflecting the sunrise. "You guided us through darkness," he says, his voice a low hum that I feel in my chest. I smile, the corners of my mouth lifting as I feel the heat of Cale's hand finding mine. "We all guided each other," I reply, my voice a soft vibration that carries the promise of a new day. Cale leans in, his fire-kissed lips meeting mine in a kiss that tastes of ember and sea salt, a promise that the heat we share will never be extinguished. Verk wraps his massive arm around my shoulders, his pulse a steady drum that matches my own, a silent vow of protection. The crew erupts in quiet cheers, their hands gripping the railings, their hearts beating in unison with the ship. I close my eyes once more, feeling the world speak to me through vibration, through pressure, through the language of wood and wind. The sea may be a cruel mistress, but today she has taught me that love can be a compass stronger than any chart. And as the ebon tide sails toward new horizons, I know that the rhythm of my heart, the fire of Cale, the steadiness of Verk, and the icy resolve of Lysander will guide us through any darkness that lies ahead.